Good afternoon, everyone. The Health and Social Care Minister and myself are delighted to be joined today by the Chief Constable. The police are a crucial part of the efforts to keep our population safe, and I'm exceedingly grateful for what they have been doing. Before I invite the Chief Constable to update you, I would like to go back to a couple of points we made yesterday. I will ask the Health and Social Care Minister to take you through today's statistics. I know that he also a point from yesterday's questions. David.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. First of all, the total number of tests undertaken now stands at 2,654. We've had tests back of 2,534, meaning we've got 120 tests outstanding. We've reported today, or in the last 24 hours, on 108 tests, and we have had no new confirmed cases. So our figure still remains at 307. The total presumed recovered now stands at 212. We have 80 active confirmed cases. It is, however, my very sad and solemn duty to report that we have 6 further deaths within the community. All 6 are related to the Abbotswood cluster, but it is an absolutely dreadful time for our community, and my heart goes out to all the family and friends of those affected. But it is important to emphasise that all 6 do relate to that cluster. The other point that I want to pick up on was a question that was asked by Sam yesterday in relation to the repatriation and the hotels being used. As I explained yesterday, when the repatriation was being framed up and it rested with DHSC, there was consideration of using 2 hotels to split the cohorts. When it was taken over by DOI, because they run the logistics, the clinical body looked at it again, and the Comus, because it is in wings, can be split in that same way. So it was decided that the Comus can actually accommodate 2 different cohorts of people returning, and that will then allow us to deep clean the other wing while the other one's in operation. So what could have been done by 2 hotels can be achieved with just the one. So all of the returning residents will be staying at the Comus. Thank you, Chief Minister.
Thank you, David, and thank you for the update and the sad news of the additional deaths of our community. My heart and thoughts go out to the families of those members who have died. Now, we made some important announcements yesterday afternoon. We have been listening to what you have been saying on social media, through emails and through phone calls to me and the team. We have also debated this in detail in the House of Keys earlier today. This has felt like a game of 2 halves. There has been a section of our community who has supported the changes we announced yesterday. Others have told us that we have gone too far, too soon. I know that some people are scared, and I understand that. We did cover a lot of ground yesterday. The Council of Ministers still has some final decisions to make tomorrow on some of the detail, and we will be publishing more guidance detail today and throughout the rest of the week. But for now, I want to make a few points that I hope will reassure you. Firstly, I know that many of you do get your news from UK radio and television stations. I know that you have been seeing the terrible situation there. This is not the situation that we are in on the Isle of Man. As of lunchtime today, a snapshot from our health and social care team shows staffing levels of around 90%. And as we heard from our matron Liz Howard earlier this week, we have been overwhelmed by offers from staff to go the extra mile and work extra shifts where necessary. The capacity of our intensive care unit is 16 beds. We only have 1 COVID patient currently there. We have everything we need in terms of key elements of personal protection equipment and other medical supplies. As you can see, this is not the same as the United Kingdom. Our Manx situation and your Manx resolve has allowed us to make Manx decisions. Secondly, I think it is important for me to describe what will not happen as a result of the changes to our approach. We have not changed the rules on gatherings. You still must not meet with people outside of your household. I would like to make a particular plea to parents on this. Please ensure your children know the rules and that they know the risks. Young people are not immune to this virus, and if they do get together with their friends, they could well bring the virus back into your home and infect your family. We are not forcing people to go back to work. We wanted to provide the opportunity for some people to be able to return to the workplace if they are able to do so in a way that is safe. Employers have an obligation to work with the employees to ensure a safe working environment. If people feel that they are being pressured to work in an unsafe way, they should contact the Health and Safety at Work team, ideally by email, on, and all in lowercase, worksafe@gov.im, and that email should be on your screens now. We are not opening the floodgates to a return to work. We shouldn't forget that large sections of our economy have been working throughout this pandemic. These include engineering, manufacturing, logistics and agriculture, to name but a few. What we are doing now is allowing construction and related trades to do the same if they choose to. I said yesterday, and I will say it again, we will be approaching this change with our eyes open. We will not hesitate to close down construction sites, retail premises, industrial units or any other premises where there is disregard for our public or workforce safety. We are not changing our advice on staying home. Staying home when you can is still the best way you can help to further suppress the curve. But you told us that you wanted to be able to decide for yourself how many times a day you can go for a walk. We have also seen the impact on society that the measures have been having. I am talking here about the increase in domestic violence and mental health calls. These are issues that are really important to me. There is no sign that the virus is going away anytime soon. We will need to learn to live with it and how to live with it. The changes we are making to allow people that little bit more freedom, we hope, will relieve some of the pressures and make this period of pandemic just that little bit easier, healthier and more sustainable. The evidence has told us that you understand social distancing. All that we are changing is to trust you to make the right decision for you and your loved ones, and to make the right decisions for your personal situation. And I know this may be stating the obvious, but if you are unwell or if you are instructed to self-isolate, you must stay at home. We are not changing our advice to the most vulnerable members of our community. If you have concerns because of your age, because you are pregnant or because you have an underlying health condition, then please do not take any risks. Stay at home. At this point, I would like to hand over to the Chief Constable.
Hello everyone, I'm grateful to the Chief Minister for his kind words, and I will return to some of the things he spoke about as I go on. It's 2 weeks to the day since I was last here talking about policing and the work that we're doing to support the health service, and I thought it important perhaps to reflect on a couple of things I said a fortnight ago. I opened my remarks then by thanking the public, and it's important that I do that again. 99% of the people of the Isle of Man understand what they have to do. 99% of the people of the Isle of Man are doing what they have to do because they know they're protecting the health service and they're keeping each other safe and well, and that's fantastic. But 2 weeks ago as well, I touched on the issue of police tolerance, and I said our tolerance isn't boundless. And in the fortnight since I was here, we've arrested 40 people for breaches of the COVID regulations, in fact more than 40. And we're not talking about people who've gone to the co-op a couple of times in a day or who've driven to the point of air for a cup of tea. We're talking about people, for example, who are infected and who've deliberately gone out into the community with people and met innocent people and potentially infected them. We're talking about people who've spat in the faces of police officers. We're talking about people who still offend after 1, 2, 3 or even 4 warnings about breaching the regulations, and I'll come back to that. The Chief Minister touched on some of the issues around domestic abuse and mental health, and I can give some data. So in the last fortnight, we've built up a lot of data, and we can compare what happened in the last month with what happened in the same month a year ago. And in that time, domestic abuse calls that we've dealt with have increased by 145%. That sounds an astronomical number, but what it means is a year ago we'd go to 1 or 2 domestic incidents a day. Now we're going to 3 or 4 or sometimes even 5. People whose mental health is a problem and who call the police for assistance, those calls have gone up 40%. That's a significant increase at a time when the public are quite rightly feeling anxious. On the other hand, collisions on our roads are down by 80%, and that's fantastic because that means that we're not filling up the beds in the hospital and we're not diverting medics from work that they have to do to protect people from COVID. Crime is down 30%. So we're dealing with a new environment, and that new environment includes people calling us about what they see as breaches, and we've been getting about 40 to 50 calls a day from the public about potential breaches. The numbers declined slightly in the last couple of days, but we're still getting those calls. And a couple of weeks ago I described what we were doing, and I said enforcement will be the last resort, and enforcement is indeed the last resort. We start off by engaging with people, we explain to people what the laws are, we encourage them to go home if they're in places they shouldn't be, and ultimately we will enforce the law. And it's quite shameful actually that some people need 4 warnings before they actually comply with the law and we have to arrest them. That you know, as a community we've done fantastic things. As a community we've come together. Some of the things we've seen in the community about social media sites growing up to help others, people going out of their way to make an effort, and the Chief Minister touched on people working extra shifts and so on. That's fantastic, yet we've got this tiny minority of people who think the law doesn't apply to them, and the law does apply to them. And they're finding out, sadly, to their cost with a number of people now in prison. Looking ahead, the Chief Minister touched on changes, and he touched on some of the detail of those changes that will apply from Friday. From Friday, the Constabulary's approach will change a little bit. We will focus on 4 significant things. We'll focus on gatherings. So you heard the Chief Minister say that you still can't go out and meet your friends in public. You can't sit in parks and in fields and have picnics. You can't mix as big groups and exercise together. We will focus on gatherings. We'll focus on infected people. So I talked before about seriously infected people who are running around. We'll focus on infected and potentially infected people. We'll focus on the roads because from Friday there's every chance that there'll be more traffic on the roads. The 40-mile-an-hour limit, which is a temporary thing, has been fantastic and people have adhered to it. But we're going to have to focus on the roads for a bit more than we have over the next few weeks, because the fine weather and the lifting of some restrictions doesn't mean people can take their motorbikes out and blast over the mountains. So we'll look at the roads. And fourthly, we'll look at crime, because there are criminals who are exploiting the world we live in and the times we live in. In the last week alone, we've arrested 4 people for drug trafficking offences. So it's really important that we do what we can to stop those people exploiting the way we live at the moment. And just before I close and go on to questions, just 2 or 3 thoughts really. There's a difference between guidance and the law. So what the government says is guidance is what we all have a part to play in by adhering to. The police will enforce the law. And I'll draw an analogy. The law for how we drive on the roads is the Road Traffic Act. So if we breach the law, we may go to court. The Highway Code is the government's guidance. So if we didn't follow government's guidance, there would be chaos on the roads. If police officers see people who are not following that guidance, we will speak to them, but we don't enforce guidance. Secondly, there are some people out there who think, absolutely wrongly, that we're relishing this, that we like the extra powers we've got. We really dislike the powers we've got. They're necessary because we're in a health emergency and we will use them sparingly and well. But the second this emergency is over, those powers are gone and we'll be glad about that. And thirdly, our strength in this island is the community. And the things that we've seen as a police service about people doing their best for everyone else have been fantastic. I spent about an hour and a half walking around Douglas yesterday in uniform, and I saw people smiling at each other, talking to each other from distance, people who were in queues for shops who were in good humour. That's what we have to build on, because that has been fantastic. So from the constabulary, thank you very much for that. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Chief Constable, for that. I will now take questions, and first I have Alex from the BBC. Alex.
Hello, Chief Minister. Obviously, there will be quite a proportion of people who will be returning to work as of Friday. Some concerns have been raised since you made the announcement about these people who may themselves be vulnerable people. They may live with vulnerable people. They may be unable to find care in the daytime for their children. So will there be a right for these workers who will be allowed to return to work on Friday to refuse? And what protections will be in place to ensure that they're not at risk of losing their jobs?
Well, thank you very much, Alex. And the answer is yes. If you are a high-risk person yourself, or you have a loved one that you live with who is high risk, if you choose not to go to work, then the schemes that Treasury are currently operating and the Department for Enterprise are operating will be still available to you if you cannot work for those reasons. Obviously, you'll have to state that, but they will be still there to help you. If you are being pressurised into going back to work, I have issued in my press conference the name of the organisation, and with the email address that you can feel free to contact them if you feel that you're being pressurised by your employer. If you're the employer yourself and you're a one-man band, one-woman band, then and you're entitled to the benefits, then if you have a health issue or someone that you're living with has a health issue, then you are entitled to. Now, obviously, the Minister for Education and Sport and Culture is in negotiations and working hard with our education colleagues to come up with a safe way to look at increasing the number of school places available for our young people, but that will be worked on by them, and when they feel that they've come up with a solution that is safe for our young people and safe, just as importantly, for our teachers, then we will be announcing that as a way forward. But until then, the construction industry, their children will not be classified as key workers, but that's obviously something that we are working on, and we hope to be able to update everyone next week.
So just to clarify absolutely that position, the government's position is if you can return to work, if you're in these sectors, do so. If you're at risk, stay home.
Yeah, I mean, this is a personal choice, Alex. What we have done is not say you must go back to work. What we have done is we are enabling you to go back to work in these sectors. Your next question, Alex.
Thank you. Yeah, one for the Chief Constable, please.
Okay. Chief Constable.
Hello, Alex.
Afternoon. Last time you were here, obviously, we spoke about a 71% increase in domestic call-outs. Now it's leapt up to 145, suggesting that this is an increasing trend for the police force. There is a blurred line, I think you'll agree, between people who are arguing more, finding it hard to compute as families, and full-blown domestic abuse situations. Are police officers being trained to distinguish between the two in domestic call-outs? And for those that are identified as being domestic abuse cases, are the victims being given proper additional support?
Police officers are trained to know the difference. And there's a lot of research out there that says people don't ring the police first time. They don't ring the police usually when it's just an argument. Sometimes people have been assaulted, for example, more than 20 times before they ring the police. So the police do understand that. There's a lot of work gone on to put in place support for people. So we've got good dialogue going with the third sector, including the Women's Refuge, for example. Next week we will be properly unveiling a scheme that we've started with Tesco, where people can go into Tesco and tell a member of staff there that they are vulnerable and they're in a domestic abusive situation, and the staff there will be able to activate support from them from the police. So there's all sorts of things that will happen. There's new guidance available for people to tell them how to get support, and that's online now. It's a significant issue, this. You talked about the speed of the increase. Low numbers again, but last week alone we had a threefold increase in the number of domestic abuse reports. So the trend does appear to be gathering pace, unfortunately in the wrong direction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. We now move on to Sam from Isle of Man newspapers. Sam.
Thank you, Chief Minister. I just wonder if we could get a bit more clarification on, we're saying about personal choice of what people can and can't do. And these are genuinely some of the questions we've had into us, that people want to know if they can go abseiling, if they can go kayaking, if they can drive all around the island at 40 miles an hour. What exactly can you do and can't you do is what people are looking for here. I suppose that they're saying to us they're not entirely sure, and we've got to ask yourselves, the police, where exactly are we going to draw the line with this?
Yeah, well, that's one area, Sam. We've got a meeting of the Council of Ministers tomorrow to discuss the sort of activities that people can do. At this moment in time, where what we're saying is that you can go out more than that one time to exercise, that we're not saying it, you should be thinking about only half an hour or an hour's exercise. We're saying if you feel the need to go out and exercise for 2-3 hours because your body needs it, maybe your mind needs that freedom to be able to get out there, then as long as you follow the social distancing and you're sensible about it, then that's fine with us. We're making it the individual to decide. But regarding sport and activities, as I say, the Council of Ministers, we're debating that very topic tomorrow, and we will be issuing advice hopefully tomorrow later on in the day, Sam.
Thank you. And secondly, can I go to Mr. Ashford, please?
Okay. David.
Good afternoon, Sam.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to clarify on some numbers. You said about there's been 6 further deaths at Abbotswood. Can we say that all community deaths in the island have been in this one cluster?
Yes.
Or, that was essentially
all community deaths recorded to date have been within the Abbotswood cluster.
And just in terms of that, then, has there been any move to move people out of Abbotswood now up to the facility at Nobles that was talked about the other day?
There have been some residents of Abbotswood that have been moved up to Newlands. The reason for that is part of the assistance that the department is providing with the home is around deep cleaning. And obviously you can't do a deep clean when it's occupied. So what we're doing is we're deep cleaning the home stage by stage, section by section. And that means that people are being transferred out up to Newlands. And then once the deep cleaning is completed, depending upon their medical condition, they will be able to be transferred back into Abbotswood.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Sam. We now move on to Amanda from Jeff the Mongoose. Amanda.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister.
Hi.
Could we have some clarity on the data around the pandemic? Yesterday in Tynwald, you said the peak could be in early May, but in our conference, you said it could be in it now. If there is a risk of the peak being later on, why are we lifting lockdown measures now? And are you concerned about a second peak?
Right, well, when we first started gathering our data and we got the initial feedback, it was expected that our peak would be in May, in early May, about the 7th to the 10th of May. But the latest data that we've been gathering has shown that because the Manx public have been so responsible, we really have pushed the curve down, and we are not expecting to have this major peak if we keep up the good work that everyone has done. And because of the capacity in our hospitals, the fact that we can increase our tracing, contact tracing, our testing, we can now do up to just circa 200 tests a day, and all the reasons I've given, we have felt that we've been able to move on to the next step. And it's a small step. We're not, as I said earlier, we're not going to be making major changes each time. It's going to be small steps. Stop, look at the data, what's happened. So because of the public's phenomenal efforts on the Isle of Man, we really have squashed the curve on this. We will not be hitting the peak as we see it at this moment in time. Now, that's no guarantee, Amanda, that there won't be a spike in the future. We can never say never. But with all the measures that we've taken and the sensible actions of the Manx public, we are in a good place, and it enables us to make these changes. And I think it's really important, Amanda, to get over the point, if I can labour this again, that this is not a marathon. So this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. We are going to have some form of lockdown for a considerable time, and anything that we can do to make it as comfortable for the population to put up with being in lockdown, then it's logical that we should do it as soon as possible once the data shows that we are able to do so.
Thank you very much. And for my second question, we have a question for the Chief Constable.
Okay, thank you. Chief Constable.
Hello, Amanda.
Hi, thank you very much. Just a quick question about the new guidance. And we wondered if it's going to be more difficult now to police with the new flexible guidelines, if it'd be harder for you to keep tabs on things now with that sort of loosening. And we also wondered about staffing for you, whether or not you'd have a surplus of police officers or if you've been overstretched in the past few weeks.
I'll deal with the second one first. We are what we call state amber for our staffing. So we followed a template we picked up from the UK, which looked at staffing on a green, amber, red, black basis. We lapsed into amber a couple of weeks ago because we had about 20% of our workforce absent. It's less now, and there are more people due to come back to work in the next 2-3 days. And we are comfortably staffed to deal with the demand that we have. I can never say that we've got too many because we haven't, because I mentioned before the risks we've got of people drug trafficking, for example, and we can't take our eye off that. To answer your first point, the reason we've identified the 4 priorities from Friday, where I talked about gatherings and infected people and the roads and then people who commit crime, that's because we simply haven't got the time or the resources, nor is it right, because it's not the law, it's guidance, for us to be trying to say to people in the street, you're too close to that person there. Nor will we be going on building sites because, as was mentioned before, the Health and Safety at Work Inspectorate are going to deal with those issues. So if there are people who ring up and say, I think the builders on that site are not following social distancing or the guidance given by the government, then it's a health and safety matter, because we're dealing with a health matter here, and employers have a duty to make sure that their employees are safe and well. And so if they're not following the guidelines, that is a health and safety at work matter.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And thank you very much, Amanda. We now move on to Tim from Manx Radio. Tim, good afternoon.
Aston, you've always said throughout this pandemic that you need to bring the public with you. And according to polls we're running, it's about a 60-40 against the moves that were announced yesterday. People are naturally worried. We've had this from a nurse on the COVID ward saying she's gone from anxious to now terrified. What do you say to the people who've really been supportive up to now, but are really worried now that this is the wrong move?
Well, obviously, when we made changes before, Tim, to allow people back onto the island, even with the small numbers every week, my post bag, metaphysically speaking, was full with people who did not agree with that happening. The vast majority of the Manx public did not want people to be repatriated. However, since that we've done it in a managed way, I think people have seen that obviously there are ways of improving that all the time, and we're looking at that, but they have accepted that as a way forward based on the best medical and clinical advice on how to do it. I know people are concerned about the changes that we've made, and I alluded to that in my opening speech, Tim, but funnily enough, today I had my weekly three-way meeting conversation with the Chief Ministers of Jersey, Guernsey, and the Minister responsible for the Isle of Man for the Ministry of Justice, Lord Keane. And I was speaking with my colleagues from the other Channel Crown dependencies, and Jersey, for example, never stopped the construction industry from working, and Guernsey are allowing the construction industry back on Friday, the same as us, and that wasn't planned together. That was just the way it's happened. I think they're allowing it from midnight on Friday. So it shows that small islands have been able to take very similar actions, and as a result are able to bring back certain sectors into back to work. So whilst I share the concerns of people, I understand people are frightened. We have to ensure that, because we're in this for the long run, this isn't a short event that will be gone in a month or 2 months' time, that we make it as comfortable for as much of society as possible with the changes that we've made to enable us as an island to continue to keep up the good work.
And secondly, on the repatriation front, we've been told of a case where somebody was selected to come in this batch that are coming back today, and then got an email 12 hours before the sailing to say that they weren't eligible anymore. They'd moved out of their house, flat, a room that they were renting, and then they checked it out with the Cabinet Office. They were told, no, you're not eligible. And then they got a phone call this morning from the people at Heysham to say, where are you? That doesn't seem very joined up, I'm afraid.
No, I haven't heard that one before, Tim. It's very disappointing to hear that, because I know in the first sailing we had a number of people that didn't turn up, having said that they wanted to come back. They didn't turn up. So obviously I need to look into that one, and I will get an update on that once I've been given the situation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. We now have Leanne from 3FM. Leanne, how are we?
Good afternoon, Chief Minister. I'm well, thank you. My first question is for Mr. Ashford, please.
Okay, David.
Good afternoon, Leanne.
Good afternoon. My first question, I don't know if it's too early, but we've had quite a lot of queries, so I thought I'd put it forward anyway. Could you give any update on how long you expect delays to both hospital appointments and cancer treatment at Nobles Hospital to last?
Unfortunately, it is too early at the moment, Leanne. We've got to, as I keep referring to, see the trend data and be in a comfortable position that we not just flatten the curve, but we're actually getting only low-level cases. If people think back to those early press conferences I did, one of the things I explained was we needed to reorder our services, not just to be able to potentially cope with demand, but also to train staff up, to move staff into the correct place. That took about 6 weeks for us to be able to plan that. If we were to unwind all that now, and we did see a spike for whatever reason, in order to actually put it back in place, it wouldn't take the full 6 weeks, but it would take around about 3 weeks. So we can't be complacent with this. But also, one of the key things about cancer, which again I've stressed at a previous press conference, is it has been shown from the Italian experience and studies that were done in Italy that those with cancer, if they contract COVID-19, their mortality rate is 5 times higher than other people. So it is not just about ending cancer treatment or pushing it back. It's actually about trying to protect those patients where their actual life chances, if they contract COVID-19, are a lot more dire than anyone else in our community. So it's partially about shielding them as well.
And my second question is for the Chief Constable, please.
Hi, Leanne.
Good afternoon. When you were last here at the press conference a fortnight ago, I don't think the emergency powers had gone through to allow police officers here to issue fines. Is this something that you now have the power to do? And if so, how many have been issued?
It's the same as last time. It's been a bit of a tortuous process. It's taken forever, and the royal assent took a long time. We'll have them by the weekend, but we won't be handing them out like confetti. We're in the process of issuing new guidance to officers based on the changes that are coming on Friday. But the one constant is enforcement comes at the end of the process. So my hope is we don't put many out at all, if any. But we will have the power by the end of the week.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, Leanne. And we now move on to Paul from MTTV. Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Minister, excuse me. And could I have the Chief Constable, please? My similar question, actually, to one that was just asked, but when these powers come in, Chief...
Hang on, just let him come back in.
He's just coming on. I'm just talking while I get there. Will you be having card readers? That's not the full question, by the way. That's just an aside. How do you collect your fines?
The constabulary doesn't have card readers. It's not had card readers, but on the notice there'll be guidance given to people about how they can pay.
Okay. The question, you've got mental health nurses allocated to the police. Now, with all that's going on, how is that going? Must be quite a caseload. Is it okay?
They've got a significant caseload, but they belong to the Department of Health and Social Care, and they are fantastic people who've made such a difference to the work that we do. For understandable reasons, they've been withdrawn from the police station because they have to be protected as well. So they do more work on the phone, but they still come into our cells to deal with people, and they're still able, under their own steam, to respond to people in the community who need assistance, and they'll deal with them by phone, but they can go to them. But they're not working with police officers, they're not deployed with police officers in the way that they were before, and that's clearly a temporary arrangement, and it's for their health and well-being as much as for anything else.
Thank you. The other question, this time last week, all the media was gathered at the seaport to watch the first 2 coaches coming off, and we were greeted with quite a police presence, blue lights flashing all the way, cars were being stopped at roundabouts. I think there's 2 cars and a motorbike. Do you think that was slightly over the top? Because people on board these coaches felt quite they felt they were being criminalised almost because, what do you expect them to get off the coaches and run for home or something? It was a bit kind of surreal to watch it. It all ended up on North West Tonight and Granada News, of course, as well.
I think you'll find that anyone else who comes will be treated in a slightly different way.
Do you think that was over the top there, then?
Well, we look at what we do and we're doing it in a different way from now on.
Okay, thank you.
Before I move on to the next person, which I think is Josh from ITV, I think it's important to state that we're all learning together and going through experiences that we've never had in living memory to go through, whether that be a government, the emergency services. And of course, every time we do something new, the next time we do it, we will be looking, are there ways to improving ourselves and the service that we offer people. And I think everyone should, please bear in mind that this is a learning curve for everyone and that we will always do our best to improve as we go along. So now I move on to Josh from ITV. Josh.
Thank you, Chief Minister. What impact do you hope returning people to work will have on the figures exactly? Because surely the projection is that we're not at the original proposed peak yet. So case numbers are presumably going to continue to rise, and allowing more people out makes it more likely for a rise in cases. So can we get some more insight into where you're expecting the numbers to go after Friday?
Well, obviously, we're going to monitor it. It'll probably take about 8 days, Josh, to see the data coming back from allowing the additional sector to go back to work. So that's something, it's too early to say what we think that will be, but obviously we will be monitoring it. And because we've never stopped testing and we've been tracing, and we've never stopped tracing either, we will be able to quickly find out if there are clusters as a result of any spike that happens as a result of allowing this workforce back, and we will be able to then take action if we feel that's being caused by unnecessary risks being taken by a certain business. So that's something that I'm afraid I can't give you the exact figures because it's just too early to say, but we will be monitoring it incredibly closely, and 8 to 10 days the medics are advising me is when they expect to see changes potentially as a result of allowing the population back. But we do obviously expect it to be well within the capacity of our services, and we are blessed by being in that position because the people of the Isle of Man have taken this so seriously and responsibly.
Okay, thank you. My second question is to the Chief Constable, please.
Okay, Chief Constable.
Hello, Josh.
Hi. How are social distancing measures going to be enforced while construction workers are on site, for example? Is it going to be completely down to workers to obey these rules, or could we see fines being given out to workers on sites from an active policing point of view?
It's the difference between guidance and the law, as I said before. The law is about gatherings, so the law says you can't go outside your home except for certain specific purposes, and then only with somebody from within your home. People who are at work are governed by the Health and Safety at Work Act. So I think I said earlier on, if there are people who see things that are not right, the Chief Minister, I think, mentioned earlier on, there may be employees who think their employers are not doing it right. Those are health and safety breaches potentially, but they're matters that the Health and Safety at Work Inspectorate deal with, not the police under the emergency powers.
But I suppose, do you feel that they will be abided by while they're at work?
I think there's a great deal of work gone on behind the scenes. So the National House Building Council in the UK, for example, has produced guidelines about how to work safely on building sites. The Chief Minister touched on the fact that in Jersey building hasn't stopped. In Germany building work didn't stop. So I think there's a lot of precedent out there and there's a lot of good practice out there, and I have every confidence that the industry will do as it needs to do.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we have Chris from Energy FM. Chris.
Good afternoon, Chief Minister.
Good afternoon.
You made the announcement that people will be able to start going back to work from this Friday, limited to those sectors that you've outlined. Why Friday? Why not Monday, the traditional start to the working week?
Well, I suppose that was left to the team. We set up a task force of Treasury, Department for Enterprise and the Department of Health and Social Care, working with advice from other departments and our medics, obviously, to look at a way that we could go on the next step of our fight against the virus, but also enable our community to have an easier but still sensible and safe lockdown effectively. What could we do to improve the situation? Because the longer we stay too tight on the measures, is the tougher we get. The increase, you've already heard the Chief Constable discuss increases in domestic abuse, mental health issues and phone calls. So it was just getting that balance right. So they came up with the date of Friday morning. I know Guernsey have come up with Friday evening. So it was just a coincidence. They looked at how much time they would need to talk it through, put the procedures in place. I think the Chief Constable raised a really important point that Germany, which is seen as a leading light in how they've handled the coronavirus fight, did not stop its construction industry. And our Channel Island colleagues are either already have allowed them back or are allowing them back the same time as us. So these are sensible measures. We're not getting carried away. It's only a small step. There are still other industries that aren't allowed back yet, but it's a step to enable our people to get out and work and earn some money, but also freedoms for people to ease the pressure that they've been under with the type of lockdown that we've had at the moment. So it's just, I'm not saying tweaking, but it's enabling people to get back to some form of normality where possible, because we are in this for the long run.
The reason I asked that question, will going back on Friday mean those people are unable to claim for this week's financial assistance that's been made available for workers?
No, we didn't come up with Friday as a date to try and do people out of their work. I think that's maybe pushing it, the conspiracy theories a little bit too much. No, if people are entitled to their benefit payment, then they will get it. And your last question,
Thank
Chris?
you very much for clarifying that. Yeah, will those who refuse to go back to work straight away because they deem it unsafe still be eligible for that financial assistance? You said before that if you are in the vulnerable category, you can state that on your form. Are you telling these people they have to go back to work if they want the money, or will they still be able to claim should they deem it unsafe for them to go back to work?
Well, if they've got a valid point and they feel and it's proven that it is unsafe, then we are saying we are not forcing people back to work, Chris. We are giving them the opportunity to go back to work. And that's a subtle difference. We're not saying you must, but if you genuinely feel that your work is unsafe and you cannot go back and you can clearly evidence that, then of course you will not be stopped from getting your existing payments.
And just finally, construction and associated trades heading back to work, then could we see a scenario where electricians and plumbers who may well be carrying the virus, they're able to go into someone's house, yet family members are still unable to do so?
Well, I think it's really important to remember that they have to comply with rules and regulations on social distancing from people when they go into houses, and also they're already going into houses to carry out emergency repairs, whether it be boilers or the trip's gone off and they can't get it back on. This is already going on as we speak, and they are following a set criteria when they go into people's houses. I think we've had a good hit. I'll take two more and then we'll move on. So Paul and then Sam and Tim, and then we move on, please. So a quick one, Paul.
Well, it's for the Chief again, actually. I'll just want to get clarification. There's 40 people or more that were arrested for breaching these guidelines. Chief, they end up with you. Do you give them a test? Because obviously it went to court that somebody was positive. Do you put that test through to everyone that is being arrested? And if so, is that voluntary or is that just compulsory? And obviously the implications on that.
No, we don't test people. We don't have the power to test people. People who have been put into the prison who are positive have caused problems within the prison, and there's been some fantastic work done by the prison governor and his staff, because they've effectively rearranged the whole of the prison to cater for people who are positive, to look after the well-being and health of the existing prisoners, but also the staff there. They've done really, really well on that. But no, we don't have the powers to do that.
Thank you.
Sam.
Sorry, I'm going to have to ask them to come back. I was going to go to Mr. Roberts as well now, please.
Okay, Chief Constable.
Get his steps in for the day.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Thanks, Sam.
It was about, last time you were here, you were saying about how more support staff have been off during this period than officers. And I just wondered, has that changed and how many officers have been off? I mean, I've been in court where we've had people who have tested positive and the sight of court staff in hazmat suits will live me for a long time. But how have you changed in office in the police station, what you've been doing, and also how many officers have been off during this period, either showing symptoms or have tested positive?
So that the balance is as it was last time. Slightly more support staff are off than police officers. We've got about 20 people off today. Across our whole workforce, and the workforce is quite substantial now, we've had 8 people who've tested positive. Some of them are now back in the work environment. We're as satisfied as we can be that they haven't got that within the work environment, that they've been infected elsewhere. We've changed how we work considerably, so teams have been split up. There's social distancing within the police station. Rhodes Policing Office, for example, have been redeployed to places like Ramsey and Peel and Castletown instead of working from headquarters. Meetings are conducted virtually, so I have meetings with my team, for example, in the mornings, and albeit our offices are a few feet apart, they're virtual meetings. So we've done all of the things we need to do and followed all of the guidance that comes from the health people.
Thank you.
And finally, Tim.
Yeah, just want to focus on the over 70s, those with an underlying health issue that are self-isolating at home. Some have had a letter saying that they can exercise or go to hospital appointments, but nothing else, and until at least the end of June. So it's more comfort for them. They're being thought of as they see other people getting their liberties and freedoms back a little bit, that they're not forgotten about, and their mental well-being.
Absolutely, Tim. I was speaking to my parents late last night, and they get food dropped off to their house, but they're walking in their back garden regularly to keep their exercise up, and obviously the TV and iPad for family catch-ups is great too. But yes, if we can ask all of the people of the Isle of Man, if you've got a neighbour who is in the over 70s or the vulnerable category, because it's not just the over 70s, it's pregnant ladies and people with autoimmune illness, if we can just keep up the good work, because I know an awful lot of work is being done by the Manx population to support our vulnerable people. Please keep it up. They really need to self-isolate for a longer period of time because they are vulnerable, and the consequences of them getting it is really serious. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to end with some shout-outs. And firstly, I received a lovely request from a gentleman asking for a shout out to the team carrying out the kidney dialysis service at both Nobles and Ramsey Cottage hospitals. So much essential medical care continues to be delivered with our health and care professionals continuing to put patients first. Thank you everyone involved in delivering this life-saving service. Second, a shout out to Jaden Gaines, who set up a target to raise £100 for the Isle of Man Food Bank, part of Ramsey Rugby Club's fundraising efforts, by cycling 100 miles within 2 weeks through his daily exercise. Now, Jaden has exceeded his target by more than 600% and counting. Well done, Jaden. And the third shout out we have is for 11-year-old Skylar in Castletown. Now, Skylar is supporting our health services by painting rocks and selling them from her doorstep. And I thank you, Skylar. I think Skylar's 11 or 12. Thank you, Skylar. I've seen a picture of your handiwork and it looks fantastic. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for everything that you have done. You have achieved remarkable results, but we must not be complacent. As government, we will be tackling the data daily and tracking the data daily, I should say. We will take any actions that we and our clinicians consider necessary to protect lives. We need you to continue to play your part. Even after Friday, stay at home if you can. It could still save lives. Thank you all very much.